In a room built for kings, Isabelle Croft knew she was dangerously invisible. She balanced a tray of champagne flutes with practiced grace, her black uniform blending into the shadows between tables where Chicago's elite celebrated deals made in darkness. She'd learned long ago to become invisible in rooms like this. The less they noticed you, the safer you were. Table 12 needs attention, her supervisor hissed, gesturing toward the far corner where a cluster of men in tailored suits surrounded a table draped in black silk. Even from across the room, Isabelle recognized the weight of power that hung around them like cologne, expensive, suffocating, dangerous. As she approached, the air seemed to thicken. The men spoke in hushed tones, their conversation punctuated by the clink of crystal and the occasional bark of laughter that didn't reach their eyes. At the head of the table sat a man who commanded attention without seeking it, Nikolai Kozlov. She'd heard the whispers about him. Billionaire. Venture capitalist. And if the rumors whispered in the kitchen were true, something far more dangerous beneath the polished exterior. But it was the older man beside him who made Isabelle's breath catch. Silver-haired and gaunt, he clutched Nikolai's arm with skeletal fingers, his face the color of ash. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. His lips moved frantically, forming words that seemed to cost him everything. "Excuse me, sir," Isabelle said softly, approaching with fresh champagne. "Would you like?" The old man's head snapped toward her, his eyes wild and desperate. Recognition flashed across his face, impossible recognition, as if he'd been waiting for her specifically. His grip on Nikolai's arm tightened. "Il tesoro di sangue e tradimento, aspetta sutta a petra di lu primo sanu," he gasped, the Calabrian dialect rolling off his tongue like a prayer. "The treasure of blood and betrayal waits beneath the stone of first sleep." Isabelle's tray trembled. The words struck her like physical blows, dragging her back to childhood evenings in her father's study, his patient voice teaching her the old language, insisting it was important, that someday she'd understand why. The old man convulsed, his champagne glass shattering against the floor. Chaos erupted. Men shouted. Someone screamed for a doctor. Nikolai caught his uncle as he collapsed, cradling the dying man against his chest. But the old man's eyes never left Isabelle's face. "Sulu ita Capri," he whispered, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Only she can understand. His final breath rattled in his chest, and then stillness claimed him. Nikolai's head jerked up, his storm-gray eyes locking onto Isabelle with predatory focus. She'd been staring, frozen, her lips still forming the shape of words she shouldn't comprehend. "You," he said, his voice cutting through the pandemonium like a blade. "You understood him." It wasn't a question. Isabelle's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to disappear into the crowd before this moment could trap her. But those eyes held her captive, searching her face for answers she wasn't ready to give. Security rushed forward. Someone was calling the police. The gala dissolved into controlled panic. And Nikolai Kozlov stood slowly, his uncle's body being covered with a tablecloth, never breaking eye contact with the waitress who'd just become the keeper of a dead man's final words. "Don't move," he commanded quietly. "We need to talk." What would you do if a dying stranger's last words were meant specifically for you? Drop your thoughts below. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. A special thank you to everyone who has stayed with me on this journey. If you're ready to uncover a tale of dangerous secrets, forbidden inheritance, and a love forged in the fires of betrayal, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll have another story for you that will leave you breathless, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. The private office smelled of leather and old money. Isabelle sat rigidly in a chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, acutely aware of the two security guards flanking the door. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's skyline glittered like a promise she'd never been meant to keep. Nikolai Kozlov stood with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear, his Russian-accented English clipped and cold. "Cancel everything." "No, I don't care about the Tokyo merger. My uncle is dead, Victor. We'll discuss the rest later." He ended the call without waiting for a response. Isabelle's fingers twisted in her lap. She'd spent the last 20 minutes replaying her father's face in her mind, the way he'd looked the last time she saw him, bruised and broken in that hospital bed, insisting his car accident was anything but. She'd been 17, desperate to believe him, terrified of the truth. He'd made her promise to forget the dialect. To never speak it, never acknowledge she understood it. And she'd just broken that promise spectacularly. "Isabelle Croft," Nikolai said, turning to face her. He held a tablet displaying what looked like her entire life history. 26 years old. BA in linguistics from Northwestern, working 3 jobs to pay off student loans. No criminal record. No social media presence worth mentioning. His eyes narrowed. Daughter of Marcus Croft, attorney at law. Deceased. The mention of her father's name hit like a fist to her chest. "What do you want?" Isabelle forced the words past the tightness in her throat. "I'm sorry about your uncle, but I just served champagne. That's all. Don't insult my intelligence." Nikolai circled the desk, moving with the controlled grace of a predator. "My uncle, Dmitri Kozlov, hasn't spoken Calabrian dialect in 40 years. The language was forbidden in our family after my father's death. Yet with his dying breath, he chose to speak it." He leaned against the desk, studying her. "And you understood every word." Isabelle's pulse thundered in her ears. Deny it. Lie. Run. But those gray eyes saw through every defense she'd ever built. "My father taught me," she whispered. "He said it was important. That our family had connections to the old country. Sicily, Calabria. He never explained why." Marcus Croft. Nikolai's expression shifted, something dark and dangerous flickering across his features. "He worked for my uncle 20 years ago. Legal counsel on international acquisitions." He paused, watching her reaction. "Until he didn't. Until someone ran him off the road and left him to die," Isabelle shot back, anger finally overriding fear. She stood, her chair scraping against polished wood. "The police called it an accident. But my father spent his last 3 days conscious telling me it wasn't. Telling me to forget everything he'd taught me, to stay away from men in expensive suits who made their money in shadows." Something flickered in Nikolai's eyes. "Surprise? Recognition? Yet here you are," he said softly. "Working at a gala filled with exactly those men." "Here I am," Isabelle agreed, "trying to survive. Trying to pay off the debts my father left behind along with his paranoia and his secrets." Her voice cracked. "I didn't ask to understand your uncle's last words. I didn't ask to be part of whatever this is." Nikolai was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its sharp edge. "My uncle raised me after my father died. He was a hard man, but fair. And for the past 5 years, he'd been trying to tell me something about my father's death, about money that should have been mine." He met her eyes. "Tonight was supposed to be a reconciliation. Instead, I watched him die in my arms, speaking a forbidden language to a waitress who shouldn't exist. The weight of those words settled between them like a contract written in blood. The treasure of blood and betrayal, Isabelle whispered, translating the phrase. Waits beneath the stone of first sleep. She looked up at him. Do you know what it means? No. Nikolai's jaw tightened. But I'm going to find out. And you're going to help me. I'm not. Your father died for this, Isabelle. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Whatever my uncle was protecting, whatever truth killed Marcus Croft, it's been waiting 20 years to surface. He extended his hand. Help me find it. Let me give you the answers your father couldn't. Isabelle stared at his outstretched hand, her mind screaming warnings her heart refused to hear. This man was dangerous. His world had already destroyed her father. But the truth had been haunting her for 9 years. She took his hand. His grip was warm, firm, and utterly unforgiving. Who taught you that dialect, Miss Croft? Nikolai asked again, quieter now. Really? Isabelle met his eyes and saw the same desperate need for answers reflected back at her. A dead man, she said. Just like yours. The autopsy report arrived at 3 a.m. Isabelle sat in Nikolai's penthouse living room, exhausted and wired on her 4th cup of coffee, when his phone buzzed. She watched his face transform as he read the message, shock giving way to cold, calculated fury. Dmitri didn't have a heart attack, Nikolai said quietly, too quietly. Digitalis poisoning. Slow acting. Someone's been dosing him for weeks. The coffee turned to acid in Isabelle's stomach. Murder. Murder, he confirmed, already dialing. Victor, I need the security footage from the estate. Every visitor Dmitri had in the past month. And get me the medical examiner's full report. He paused, his gaze sliding to Isabelle. No, she stays. I'll explain later. He ended the call and crossed to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey despite the hour. He pressed one into Isabelle's hands. You should go to the police, she said, even as she took the glass. The police can't help with this. Nikolai's laugh was bitter. My family's business operates in gray areas. Dmitri had enemies. So do I. The moment I involve law enforcement, whoever did this disappears, and the truth dies with them. So what do? We start with what Dmitri gave us. Nikolai pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until he found one, a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. This was in Dmitri's safe. My lawyer retrieved it an hour ago. It's written entirely in Calabrian dialect. Isabelle's breath caught as he showed her the image. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned, covering page after page in the language her father had painstakingly taught her. The stone of first sleep, she murmured, focusing on a passage. That phrase appears here. Multiple times. She looked up at Nikolai. This is a record of transactions. Dates, amounts, locations. But they're all coded with phrases like beneath the weeping saint and where iron meets water. Can you decode it? Maybe. But Isabelle zoomed in on a particular entry. Her blood ran cold. Nikolai, look at this date. March 15th, 20 years ago. The entry says MC delivered final documentation. Payment rendered in silence. MC, Nikolai repeated, his eyes meeting hers. Marcus Croft. The day before my father's accident. Isabelle's hand trembled. What documentation? Payment in silence? Does that mean they killed him? Before Nikolai could answer, the penthouse elevator chimed. They both froze. "I'm not expecting anyone," Nikolai said, his hand sliding to the drawer where Isabelle had seen him place a gun earlier. "Get behind the bar. Now." But the doors opened to reveal an elegant woman in her 50s, draped in a black fur coat despite the summer heat. Her dark eyes swept the room with calculating precision before landing on Nikolai. "Aunt Katya," Nikolai said, surprise flickering across his face. "It's late. I heard about Dmitri." Katya Kozlov glided into the room as if she owned it. "Such a tragedy. My dear brother-in-law, gone so suddenly." Her gaze found Isabelle. "And who is this?" "No one," Nikolai said too quickly. "A witness from the gala. I was taking her statement. At 3 a.m. In your home." Katya's smile was sharp as broken glass. "How thorough of you, Nikolai." She moved closer to Isabelle, studying her face. "You look familiar, child. Have we met?" "I don't think so," Isabelle managed, her instincts screaming danger. Perhaps I knew your mother? You have such distinctive features." Katya's attention shifted back to Nikolai. "I came to discuss the funeral arrangements. And, of course, Dmitri's estate. As his sister-in-law and your father's widow, I have certain legal rights too." "Dmitri's will is clear," Nikolai interrupted, his voice cold. "Everything comes to me." "Of course, dear nephew. I simply meant to help." Katya's eyes glittered. "After all, managing your father's legacy has proven complicated, hasn't it? 20 years, and you still haven't found what he left you. Perhaps it's time to accept that some inheritances aren't meant to be claimed." The threat hung in the air like poison. "Thank you for your concern, Aunt Katya. I'll handle my inheritance myself." "Will you?" Katya moved toward the elevator, then paused. "Dmitri always was sentimental about the past. I do hope he didn't burden you with his old obsessions." Her gaze flickered to Isabelle one more time. "Or his old mistakes." The elevator doors closed, leaving suffocating silence in their wake. "She knows," Isabelle whispered. "About the journal. About whatever your uncle was hiding." Nikolai's jaw clenched. "She's been trying to access my father's accounts for 2 decades. The courts blocked her every time, but if she gets to the inheritance first." He pulled out his phone, making a decision. "Pack a bag. We're leaving." "Leaving? Where?" "Switzerland." Nikolai's eyes burned with determination. "If the clue is about vaults and inheritances, that's where we start. The journal mentions a bank in Zurich, where mountains guard secrets and silence costs gold." He grabbed his jacket. "Can you get time off work?" Isabelle thought of her tiny apartment, her crushing debt, her safe, ordinary life. Then she thought of her father's broken body, his desperate warnings, 9 years of unanswered questions. "Yes," she said. "I can." Nikolai smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, making him look younger, almost vulnerable. "Good. We leave in 4 hours." He moved toward her, extending his hand once more. "Are you ready for this, Isabelle Croft? Once we start, there's no going back." She took his hand, feeling the calluses that spoke of a life more complicated than boardrooms and business deals. "I've been waiting 9 years to go forward," she said. "Let's find the truth." Part 4, Rising Tension. The private jet cut through clouds somewhere over the Atlantic. Isabelle pressed her forehead against the cool window, watching dawn paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. She'd never flown first class, let alone on a private plane. The leather seats, the attentive staff, the casual wealth, it was a world she'd only ever served, never inhabited. "You're not sleeping," Nikolai observed from across the cabin. He'd discarded his jacket hours ago, his white shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with scars that told stories he hadn't shared. "Neither are you." He smiled faintly, closing his laptop. "Tell me about your father." "Not the lawyer, the man who taught you Calabrian at bedtime." Isabelle hesitated, unused to someone asking about Marcus Croft as anything other than a cautionary tale. "He was brilliant. Obsessive. He'd stay up until 3 a.m. researching obscure legal precedents, then wake me at dawn to practice verb conjugations." Her throat tightened. "After my mother died when I was 8, the dialect became our secret language. Our way of keeping her memory alive. She was from Calabria originally." "He loved you," Nikolai said simply. "He loved the truth more." The words came out sharper than intended. "Whatever he discovered about your family, about that inheritance, it consumed him. Made him paranoid. In the end, I think the truth killed him more effectively than any car accident." Nikolai's expression darkened. "My father was the same. Brilliant, obsessive, dead at 35. He poured them both coffee from the carafe. "Dmitri told me he was murdered, but I was only 6. The official story was a heart attack. Just like they tried with Dmitri." "Someone's been covering up the truth for 20 years, Isabelle said quietly. "Someone with resources and patience." Nikolai pulled out the journal, now secured in a protective case. "I had Victor scan every page. Look at this entry from 2 weeks before my father died." He showed her the translation on his tablet. "The nephew hungers for power he hasn't earned. DK warns of poison in the family wine. Brothers betray brothers when gold blinds the heart. DK, Dmitri Kozlov." He knew. Isabelle scrolled through more entries. "And the nephew, do you have other family besides Katia?" "My father had a younger brother, Alexei. He runs the European operations." Nikolai's jaw tightened. "We're flying into his territory. If he's involved, then we're walking into a trap." "Possibly." Nikolai met her eyes. "You can still turn back. When we land in Zurich, I'll set you up in a hotel, transfer enough money to clear your debts. You don't have to risk." "Yes, I do." Isabelle surprised herself with the vehemence in her voice. "My father died for this secret. I need to know why. I need to know if—" She couldn't finish the thought. "If what?" "If I could have saved him," she whispered. "If I'd been smarter, braver, if I'd asked the right questions." Nikolai crossed the cabin in 3 strides, crouching before her seat. His hands covered hers, warm and solid. "You were 17. A child. Whatever happened to Marcus Croft, it wasn't your fault." The kindness in his voice nearly undid her. Isabelle blinked back tears, acutely aware of how close he was, the scent of his cologne mixing with coffee and something uniquely him. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, a gesture so gentle it felt like a promise. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really? You could hire a dozen translators, security teams, investigators. You don't need me." Nikolai's gray eyes held hers, and in their depths, she saw grief that mirrored her own. "Because you understand. Not just the dialect, the loss. The questions that haunt you at 3 a.m. The feeling that everyone's lying and you're the only one who cares about the truth." His voice dropped. I've been alone in this for 20 years, Isabelle. I'm tired of being alone. The moment stretched between them, charged with something that felt dangerous and inevitable. Isabelle's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd spent 9 years building walls around her grief, and this man was dismantling them brick by brick. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Mr. Kozlov, we'll be landing in 30 minutes. Nikolai pulled back, the spell breaking. But his hand lingered on hers a moment longer than necessary. When we land, stay close to me, he said, his tone shifting back to business. The bank Dmitri mentioned, Helvetica Truehand, it's invitation only. They cater to people who need absolute discretion. People like my family. He pulled up a photo on his phone. This is the banker we're meeting. Werner Schmidt. He's handled Kozlov accounts for 40 years. Isabelle studied the image of an elderly man with steel-gray hair and calculating eyes. Can we trust him? In my world, Miss Croft, trust is a luxury we can't afford. Nikolai's smile was grim. But we can leverage secrets. And I know enough of Schmidt's to ensure his cooperation. The plane began its descent, and through the window, the Swiss Alps rose like jagged teeth against the morning sky. Beautiful and treacherous. Isabelle's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Turn back while you still can. Your father should have listened too. Her blood turned to ice. Nikolai, she whispered, showing him the screen. His face went deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. They know we're coming. He pulled out his phone, firing off rapid texts. Victor, I need a security team at the airport. Armed. Now. Should we abort? Isabelle asked, fear finally piercing her determination. Nikolai looked at her, and in his eyes, she saw the same choice reflected, safety or truth, survival or answers. That depends, he said quietly. Are you with me? Isabelle thought of her father's last words, stay away from men in expensive suits. She was doing the exact opposite, flying into danger with a man who wore power like a second skin. But she was also finally moving toward the truth. I'm with you, she said. The plane touched down in Zurich, and their hunt for a 20-year-old secret began in earnest. If you discovered someone was threatening you for seeking the truth about your past, would you press forward or protect yourself? Let us know below. The vault room at Helvetica Truehand sat 3 stories underground, accessible only through biometric scans and a series of steel doors that closed behind them with the finality of coffin lids. Werner Schmidt led them through the sterile corridors, his footsteps echoing against marble floors. Your uncle was most specific about the access protocol, Schmidt said in precise, accented English. Only 2 people could open this vault, himself, and someone who could recite the passphrase in perfect Calabrian dialect. His pale eyes fixed on Isabelle. He visited 3 months ago. Said he was dying, that he needed to ensure the right person would find what he'd protected. Isabelle's skin prickled. He knew someone would kill him. He knew many things, Miss Croft. Schmidt stopped before a massive steel door engraved with intricate symbols. Including your name. He left explicit instructions that if a woman named Isabelle Croft ever came seeking access, I was to provide it immediately. He paused. He also left you a message. From his briefcase, Schmidt withdrew an envelope yellowed with age. Isabelle's hands trembled as she took it, recognizing her father's handwriting on the front. For my daughter, when she's ready to know. That's impossible, she whispered. My father died 9 years ago. This letter is 20 years old, Schmidt corrected. Your father left it with Dmitri Kozlov the day before his death, with instructions to safeguard it until you came searching for the truth. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. Marcus Croft knew he was going to die, Miss Croft. And he knew that one day, you would stand exactly where you are now. Nikolai's hand found the small of her back, steadying her. Open it. With shaking fingers, Isabelle broke the seal. Her father's precise handwriting swam before her eyes. My darling Isabelle. If you're reading this, I've failed to protect you from the truth I spent your childhood preparing you to face. I'm sorry. I thought I could expose the Kozlov family's corruption, claim the reward money, and give you the life your mother wanted for you. Instead, I've learned that some secrets are guarded by people who will kill to keep them buried. The Calabrian dialect I taught you isn't just a language, it's a key. Dmitri Kozlov was the only honest man in a den of vipers. He's been secretly documenting every crime the family committed since the 1960s, including the murder of Nikolai's father, Viktor Kozlov. Viktor discovered that his younger brother Alexei and his wife Katya were systematically stealing from the family business, building a shadow empire. When Viktor threatened to expose them, they poisoned him. Dmitri saw it happen but couldn't prove it without putting his nephew Nikolai, then just a child, in danger. The vault you're accessing contains evidence of 2 decades of theft, murder, and fraud. Bank records, photographs, taped confessions. Everything needed to destroy Alexei and Katya, and everything needed to restore what was stolen from Nikolai. But here's what Dmitri never told me, what I discovered too late: Nikolai is Viktor's son by blood, but Viktor wasn't Nikolai's biological father. Katya had an affair with Viktor's driver before Viktor died. She wanted Viktor's inheritance for her true son. The letter ended abruptly, torn away mid-sentence. No, Isabelle breathed. No, there's more. Where's the rest? Schmidt's expression was grim. That's all that was left after someone broke into our archives 10 years ago. We increased security afterwards, but the damage was done. Nikolai had gone utterly still beside her, his face carved from marble. What is he saying? That I'm not. It doesn't matter, Isabelle said quickly, gripping his arm. Your uncle raised you as his own. Whatever the biology. Of course it matters. Nikolai pulled away, his voice raw. If Katya's other son is Viktor's true heir, then everything I've been fighting for, everything Dmitri protected, he slammed his fist against the wall. It's not mine. It never was. We don't know that, Isabelle argued. The letter's incomplete. And even if Miss Croft is correct, Schmidt interrupted. Which is why you need to see what's in the vault. He gestured to the door. The passphrase, please. Isabelle's mind raced. Her father had been murdered trying to expose this. Dmitri had died protecting it. And now Nikolai's entire identity was unraveling before her eyes. She stepped to the door and spoke clearly. U tesoro di sangue e tradimento aspetta sutta a petra di lu primusanu. The vault hissed open. Inside wasn't the mountain of documents Isabelle expected. Instead, a single steel box sat on a pedestal, and beside it, a modern tablet with a note attached, for Nikolai, the truth your father wanted you to know. Nikolai approached slowly, as if the box might explode. His hands shook as he lifted the tablet and pressed play. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly Viktor Kozlov filled the frame, young, intense, unmistakably Nikolai's father. The resemblance was staggering. Nikolai, my son, the recording began. If you're watching this, then Dmitri kept his promise, and the woman standing beside you is Marcus Croft's daughter. Isabelle, your father was a good man. I'm sorry I got him killed. Isabelle's breath caught. What you're about to learn will change everything. Yes, Katia had an affair. Yes, she bore another man's child. Victor's image leaned forward. But that child wasn't you, Nikolai. It was your cousin, Roman, Alexei's supposed son. Roman is actually Katia's illegitimate child, which means Alexei's entire line is a fraud. The implications crashed over them like a tidal wave. You are my son, Victor continued. My blood, my heir, my legacy. And the evidence in this vault proves that Katia and Alexei murdered me to install Roman as the future head of the family. They've been grooming him for 20 years, stealing from your inheritance to fund his empire. Victor's expression hardened. The documents here will destroy them. But using them will start a war that could shatter everything our family built. You must decide, Nikolai, justice or peace, truth or mercy. The screen went black. Nikolai sank against the wall, his face buried in his hands. Isabelle watched his shoulders shake and realized this powerful, controlled man was breaking apart. She knelt beside him, pulling his hands away from his face. Tears tracked down his cheeks. I'm still me, he whispered. I'm still his son. Yes, Isabelle said fiercely. You are. And we're going to make them pay for what they did to him. To Dmitri. To my father. To all of us. She kissed him then, a fierce, desperate kiss that tasted like salt and vengeance and something fragile breaking open between them. Nikolai's hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and for one moment the vault, the conspiracy, the danger all fell away. When they broke apart, his gray eyes burned with renewed purpose. Roman doesn't know, Nikolai said slowly. He thinks he's Victor's son. He thinks the inheritance is his. Then we have leverage, Isabelle said. Schmidt cleared his throat. I should mention, Roman Kozlov called this morning. He's in Zurich. And he's looking for you. They never made it out of the bank. The explosion ripped through the underground parking garage just as Nikolai's car pulled up. The shockwave threw Isabelle against the concrete pillar, her ears ringing, lungs burning with acrid smoke. Through the chaos, she saw Nikolai's security team, Victor's men, collapse like puppets with cut strings. Not an accident. An attack. Isabelle. Nikolai's voice cut through the ringing in her ears. He dragged her behind a concrete barrier as gunfire erupted. Stay down. But the shots weren't aimed at them, they were aimed at Schmidt's men, the bank's security. Someone wanted them trapped, not dead. Not yet. This way. Nikolai pulled her toward an emergency exit, but the door burst open before they reached it. 4 men in tactical gear flooded in, and at their center stood a man who could have been Nikolai's brother, same sharp features, same commanding presence, but with cruelty etched into every line. Roman Kozlov. Cousin, Roman said pleasantly, as if they'd met for coffee instead of a firefight. You've been difficult to find. Nikolai positioned himself between Roman and Isabelle, his gun trained on the other man's chest. Let her go. This is between family. But she is family now, isn't she? Roman's smile widened. The daughter of the lawyer who tried to blackmail us. How poetic. His eyes fixed on Isabelle with predatory interest. Did you find Daddy's letter? Did he tell you how he demanded $2 million to keep quiet about our business dealings? How he threatened to destroy everything? Liar, Isabelle spat. My father wanted justice, not money. Your father wanted to be rich, Roman corrected. Unfortunately, he underestimated my mother's commitment to protecting this family. He gestured casually. Just as you underestimated mine. The tactical team moved forward. Nikolai fired twice, dropping one man, but Roman's team had the advantage. Within seconds, they'd disarmed Nikolai and torn Isabelle from his side. Don't touch her. Nikolai lunged, but two men pinned him down. Roman crouched before him, almost gentle. My mother told me everything, Nikolai. About Victor's recording, about Dimitri's betrayal, about the vault. He pulled out a tablet, their tablet, the one with Victor's confession. She also told me about this. The lies Dimitri and Victor fabricated to discredit her, to make me doubt my parentage. It's not a lie, Nikolai said through gritted teeth. You're not Alexei's son. You're. Roman's fist connected with Nikolai's jaw. Once. Twice. Blood spattered the concrete. Stop. Isabelle screamed, struggling against the arms restraining her. He's telling you the truth. Your mother had an affair, Roman. Everything you've built is based on a lie. Roman stood slowly, his knuckles bloody, and approached Isabelle with chilling calm. My mother is many things, ambitious, ruthless, calculating. But she wouldn't lie to me. He traced a finger down Isabelle's cheek, ignoring Nikolai's roar of rage. However, she did suggest I might find you useful. A linguist who understands the old dialects. Someone who could help us decode the rest of Dimitri's journals. I'll never help you, Isabelle said. No. Roman nodded to one of his men, who pressed a gun to Nikolai's temple. Not even to save him? Time seemed to stop. Isabelle looked into Nikolai's eyes and saw resignation there, acceptance. He was telling her to refuse, to let him die rather than betray everything they'd fought for. But she'd already lost her father to this conspiracy. She couldn't lose Nikolai too. Wait, she whispered. I'll do it. I'll translate the journals. Just don't kill him. Isabelle, no, Nikolai started. Roman struck him again, silencing him. Smart girl. Unfortunately, I can't let Nikolai live. He's seen too much, and dead martyrs are so much easier to manage than living rivals. He checked his watch. We have a plane waiting. You'll come with us to Geneva, translate what we need, and then, well, we'll see how cooperative you've been. You're going to kill me anyway, Isabelle said flatly. Probably, Roman agreed cheerfully. But you'll have a few more days with hope. That's more than my mother gave your father. The admission hit like a physical blow. Katia killed him. Ordered it done, technically. The car accident was quite convincing, wasn't it? Roman gestured to his men. Take Nikolai to the safe house. Make sure he's comfortable. Miss Croft will want to know he's alive while she works for us. No. Isabelle fought as they dragged her toward the exit. Nikolai. Their eyes met across the smoke-filled garage. Blood dripped from Nikolai's split lip, but his gaze was fierce, unbroken. He mouthed 3 words, trust me. Survive. Then they hauled him away in the opposite direction, and Isabelle's world shattered into pieces. Roman's hand clamped on her shoulder as they emerged into blinding sunlight. A black SUV idled at the curb, its windows tinted dark as secrets. Don't look so devastated, Miss Croft, Roman said softly. In my family, separation is just another form of control. Nikolai is more valuable to me alive, for now. His suffering will ensure your cooperation. Why are you doing this? Isabelle asked, desperation bleeding into her voice. If the inheritance is rightfully yours, why kill for it? Roman's expression flickered, something vulnerable and wounded passing across his features before his mask slammed back into place. Because my mother told me it was mine, he said quietly. And I've spent 27 years becoming the man worthy of it. I won't let Dimitri's lies or Victor's posthumous manipulations steal what I've earned. He opened the SUV door. Get in. As they drove away, Isabelle watched the bank recede in the side mirror. Somewhere in that building, Nikolai was being taken to an unknown location. The evidence they'd risked everything for was in Roman's hands. Her father's murder was confirmed, but the killers had won. She'd never felt more alone. Roman made a phone call in rapid Russian, then turned to her with cold satisfaction. My mother wants to meet you. She's quite curious about Marcus Croft's daughter. His smile was razor-sharp. She has questions about what your father might have told you before he died. I suggest you have good answers. Through the window, the Swiss Alps rose against a darkening sky, beautiful and merciless. Isabelle closed her eyes and did the only thing she could. She began to plan. The lakeside villa was a gilded cage. Isabelle sat in an opulent study overlooking Lake Geneva, surrounded by priceless art and the suffocating presence of Nikolai Kozlov. You have your father's eyes, Katia observed, pouring tea with elegant precision. He had such conviction in them, right up until the end. Even when he realized no one was coming to save him. Isabelle kept her face neutral, though rage burned beneath her skin. 3 days she'd been here, translating Dimitri's journals while receiving daily proof-of-life photos of Nikolai, each one showing him more bruised, more broken. 3 days of playing the compliant captive while searching for any weakness to exploit. The journals mention a second vault, Isabelle said carefully. In Sicily. Beneath the family's ancestral estate. Katia's eyes sharpened. What does it contain? The original documents. The journals here are copies. Isabelle met the older woman's gaze. Dimitri was paranoid. He wouldn't keep everything in one location. It was a lie, improvised from fragments of entries Isabelle had deliberately mistranslated. But Katia didn't know that. Sicily, Katia murmured. Of course. Dimitri always was sentimental about the old country. She studied Isabelle. You'll accompany Roman to retrieve them. Consider it your opportunity to prove your continued usefulness. And Nikolai? Will remain our guest until you return. Katia's smile was ice. Motivation for your cooperation. A knock interrupted them. One of Roman's men entered, his expression troubled. Ma'am, we have a problem. The authorities found Schmidt's body at the bank. They're investigating. Katia's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. Schmidt was supposed to disappear, not be found. There's more. Someone leaked footage of the garage attack to Interpol. They've issued warrants for Roman's arrest. Isabelle's heart leaped. Nikolai. Somehow, he'd gotten word out. Katia stood abruptly. Prepare the plane. We leave for Sicily tonight. Roman, bring the girl and liquidate our guest. He's more liability than asset now. No. Isabelle surged to her feet. You need me to access the vault. If Nikolai dies, I won't cooperate. I'll mistranslate everything, send you on wild chases until the authorities close in. Then I'll kill you and find another translator, Katia said coldly. There isn't another translator. Isabelle gambled everything on the bluff she'd been building for 3 days. My father didn't just teach me the dialect, he taught me the family codes. Dmitri used substitution ciphers layered into the language. Without me, those journals are gibberish. It was partially true. She'd noticed patterns in Dmitri's writing that suggested deeper encryption. Roman entered, phone in hand, his expression unreadable. "Mother, we have another complication. Alexei's accounts have been frozen. Someone triggered an international investigation into money laundering." "Impossible," Katya hissed. "Those accounts are untraceable." "Unless someone had Victor's original banking records," Isabelle said softly. "The ones from the vault. The ones Nikolai memorized before you took them." The room went silent. Roman's eyes widened with realization. He's been preparing for this. The proof-of-life photos, the Compliant Prisoner Act, it was all delay tactics while he set his own trap. Katya's mask of composure finally shattered. "Where is he?" "The safe house," Roman said, already moving. "I'll." His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. "Hello, Roman." Nikolai's voice filled the room, calm and cold. "I believe you have something of mine." "Nikolai," Katya breathed. "You're making a grave mistake." "No, Aunt. You made the mistake 20 years ago when you murdered my father." His tone hardened. "I have copies of everything from the vault. Financial records, taped confessions, evidence of 30 years of fraud and murder. In 12 hours, it all goes to Interpol, the FBI, and every major news organization unless you meet my terms." "What terms?" Roman demanded. "Release Isabelle. Surrender yourselves to Swiss authorities. Confess to Victor's murder and Marcus Croft's." Katya laughed, brittle and sharp. "You'd destroy the entire family? Everything Victor built?" "Victor built an empire on blood and lies," Nikolai said. "I'm building something different. Something honest." A pause. "Isabelle, if you can hear me, I'm coming for you." "Hold on." The line went dead. Isabelle's chest constricted with hope so fierce it hurt. He was alive. He was fighting. Roman stared at his phone, then at his mother. Something shifted in his expression, doubt, maybe, or the first crack in his loyalty. "Mother, if Interpol has evidence." "Then we eliminate the evidence," Katya snapped. She turned to Isabelle with terrifying focus. "Where would Nikolai hide? Where would he run?" Isabelle smiled, the first genuine smile in 3 days. "Somewhere you'll never find him. Somewhere he learned from his father to always keep a contingency. Then you're no longer useful." Katya pulled a gun from her desk drawer, aiming it at Isabelle's chest. Roman stepped between them. "Mother, no. If we kill her, Nikolai releases everything. Nikolai will release everything anyway." Katya's hand trembled with rage. "We've lost, Roman." "Unless," her eyes gleamed with desperate calculation. "Sicily. If there truly is a second vault, it might contain evidence we can use against Nikolai. Leverage." It was the opening Isabelle had been waiting for. "There is," she said. "But only I can access it. And I'll only cooperate if Nikolai and I both walk away alive." Mother and son exchanged glances. Finally, Roman lowered his gun. "We go to Sicily," he said quietly. "All of us. And we end this where it began." As they prepared to leave, Isabelle caught her reflection in the window, her father's eyes staring back at her, filled with the same conviction that had gotten him killed. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, Nikolai was out there, planning, fighting, coming for her. This time, they would win. The Kozlov ancestral estate clung to a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, its ancient stone walls weathered by centuries of secrets. Isabelle stood in the Famiglia chapel, Roman's gun pressed to her back, as she traced her fingers along the stone altar Dmitri had referenced in his journal. Sutta Petra di lu Primusanu, she whispered. Beneath the stone of first sleep. The altar commemorated Viktor Kozlov, the first family member to sleep in this chapel after his supposed heart attack. Move it, Roman ordered, his patience fraying. They'd been searching for 3 hours while Katya coordinated with her remaining loyalists, preparing to flee Europe once they secured whatever leverage this vault contained. Isabelle pressed the engraved family crest, and with a grinding of ancient mechanisms, the altar shifted aside. Stone steps descended into darkness. Roman shoved her forward, flashlight cutting through the black. The passage opened into a circular chamber, its walls covered in photographs, documents, and a safe embedded in the rock itself. But they weren't alone. "Hello, Roman." Nikolai emerged from the shadows, flanked by 6 armed men. His face bore the evidence of Roman's hospitality, bruised jaw, split lip, a cut above his eye, but his gun hand was steady. Roman spun, weapon trained on Nikolai, but he was outnumbered and knew it. "How?" "This is my father's estate," Nikolai said quietly. "Did you really think I wouldn't know every secret passage, every hidden entrance?" His eyes found Isabelle's, and relief flooded his features. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she managed, her voice breaking. "Nikolai." "I know." He stepped closer, never lowering his weapon. "I know you were buying time, creating leverage. I know you saved both our lives with that Sicily bluff." His gaze hardened as it shifted to Roman. "Now we end this." Footsteps echoed from above. Katya descended the stairs, flanked by her own guards, creating a deadly standoff in the confined space. Her elegance remained intact, but desperation haunted her eyes. "Still so dramatic, Nikolai," she said. "Just like Viktor." He also believed in noble gestures and moral superiority. She gestured to the chamber. "And look where it got him, murdered by people who understood that power matters more than principles." "You killed your own husband," Nikolai said, disgust thick in his voice. "I killed a man who was going to expose us, destroy everything we'd built." Katya's composure cracked. Viktor was going to hand evidence to the authorities, dismantle the family's empire because of his precious conscience. "I did what was necessary to protect Roman's future." "By lying to him about his father?" Isabelle interjected. "By building his entire identity on a fraud?" Roman's gun wavered between Nikolai and his mother. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing," Katya said quickly. "Lies from Dmitri's poisoned journals?" "The truth," Nikolai interrupted. He pulled out his phone, cueing Viktor's video. "Roman, you deserve to know who you really are." "Don't listen to him," Katya commanded. "Roman, he's manipulating." But Roman was already watching, his face draining of color as Viktor explained the affair, the substituted bloodlines, the decades of deception. When it ended, Roman stood frozen, his weapon hanging loose. "Tell me it's not true," he whispered to Katya. "Mother, tell me." "It doesn't matter," Katya said desperately. "Biology is meaningless. I raised you, trained you, gave you everything. You lied to me." Roman's voice broke. "My entire life, you lied. Alexei isn't my father. The inheritance I've killed for, the legacy I've destroyed myself to protect, none of it was ever mine." "Roman," Katya reached for him. He jerked away, gun rising. For a terrible moment, Isabelle couldn't tell who he was aiming at, Nikolai or his mother. I killed Schmidt, Roman said hollowly. Ordered the attack that murdered Dmitri's guards. Tortured Nikolai for information. He looked at his hands as if seeing blood there. All for a lie. You did it for family, Katia insisted. For us. That's real, Roman. My love for you is real. Your love destroyed me. Roman's gun settled on Katia. Just like it destroyed Victor. Marcus Croft. Dmitri. How many more were you planning to sacrifice? The chamber held its breath. Then Roman lowered his weapon and stepped toward Nikolai. The accounts, the evidence, the crimes, I'll testify to all of it. Interpol, FBI, whoever you want. His voice was empty. But I want immunity. And I want the truth about my real father. Katia's scream of rage echoed off stone walls. She lunged for Roman, but Nikolai's men restrained her. She fought like a cornered animal, elegant facade finally shattered. You ungrateful traitor, she shrieked at Roman. I gave you everything. I killed for you. You killed for yourself, Roman said quietly. I was just your excuse. Nikolai nodded to his men. Take her. The authorities are waiting outside. As they dragged Katia away, her curses echoing through the passage, Isabelle finally allowed herself to collapse against the stone wall. The adrenaline that had sustained her for days evaporated, leaving her shaking. Nikolai was there instantly, catching her, pulling her into his arms. His warmth, his solidity, the familiar scent of him, it broke something loose in her chest. It's over, he murmured into her hair. You're safe. We're safe. Isabelle pulled back just enough to see his face, to touch the bruises Roman had left. Your 12-hour ultimatum was 20 hours ago, Nikolai admitted with a slight smile. I lied about the timeline to force their hand, make them act rashly. And you. He cupped her face. You were brilliant. The second vault, the ciphers, the leverage. Was terrified every moment, Isabelle confessed. I thought they'd kill you. When I saw those photos. I know. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. But you trusted me. You held on. Roman cleared his throat awkwardly. The safe. There's still the matter of the inheritance, Nikolai finished. He released Isabelle reluctantly and approached the wall safe, entering the combination Dmitri had hidden in his journal. The door swung open, revealing stacks of documents, USB drives, and a final letter addressed to Nikolai. But Nikolai only glanced at it before turning to Roman. It's yours. Roman stared. What? The evidence, the accounts, everything. Nikolai's expression was resolute. I don't want an empire built on blood. I want to build something clean. Something that would make my father proud, not for his money, but for his principles. I don't understand, Roman whispered. You'll need resources to start over, to become someone beyond Katia's lies. Nikolai extended his hand. Take it. Build something legitimate. Break the cycle. For a long moment, Roman simply looked at the offered hand. Then, slowly, he shook it. Thank you, Roman said, and for the first time, Isabelle saw him as not a villain, but a man trying to find redemption. As Interpol agents flooded the estate above, Nikolai pulled Isabelle close, and together they watched the Mediterranean sunrise paint the sky in shades of hope. 6 months later, Chicago welcomed autumn with golden leaves and crisp air that tasted of new beginnings. Isabelle stood in the gallery of Northwestern University's linguistics department, surrounded by her students' research projects. Her position as associate professor had come through 3 months ago, funded by an anonymous benefactor who she suspected wore expensive suits and had storm-gray eyes. "Professor Croft?" A young woman approached nervously. "I wanted to thank you for the recommendation letter. I got into the translation program in Florence." "You earned it, Maria." Isabelle smiled warmly. "Your work on regional Italian dialects was exceptional." As the student left, Isabelle's phone buzzed. A text from Nikolai, rooftop. "Sunset. Don't be late." Her heart still skipped when his name appeared on her screen. The building's rooftop had been transformed. String lights draped between potted trees, a table set for two overlooking the city skyline, and Nikolai standing at the railing in dark slacks and a white shirt rolled to his elbows, casual elegance that took her breath away. "You know I have papers to grade," she said, approaching him. "You always have papers to grade." He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with the easy familiarity they'd built over months of healing. "I'm more important." Debatable, she teased, but melted into him anyway. They'd taken things slowly after Sicily. Nikolai had testifying to do, a business empire to restructure, trauma to process. Isabelle had her own healing, therapy sessions where she finally grieved her father properly, anger she had to work through about the years stolen by lies. But they'd done it together. Late-night phone calls when nightmares struck. Weekend trips where they learned each other without the shadow of danger. Small moments that built into something real and lasting. "I have news," Nikolai said, pouring wine. Roman's testimony helped convict Katia and Alexei. 30 years to life, no parole. Isabelle absorbed that. Justice, finally. "How's Roman handling it?" "Better than expected. He's in London, running a legitimate investment firm. He actually called last week to ask advice about philanthropic ventures." Nikolai's expression was thoughtful. "I think he's genuinely trying to become someone different." "People can change," Isabelle said softly, "when they're finally free to choose who they want to be." Nikolai pulled an envelope from his pocket, its weight suggesting importance. "Speaking of choosing, I've been offered a position on several corporate boards. High profile, lucrative, everything the old Nikolai would have wanted." He handed it to her. "I'm turning them all down." Isabelle opened the envelope to find architectural plans. A building labeled the Viktor Kozlov Foundation for Justice Reform. "I'm using the inheritance to fund legal aid for families affected by organized crime," Nikolai explained. "Help people like your father who tried to stand up to corruption. And there's a wing dedicated to preserving endangered languages and dialects, the Isabelle Croft Language Institute." Tears blurred her vision. "Nikolai, your father and mine died trying to do the right thing. This felt like a way to honor that." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "And I was hoping you'd help me run it. Be on the board, advise on the language programs. Maybe." He paused, suddenly nervous in a way she rarely saw. "Maybe consider making it a permanent partnership." He knelt, producing a ring that caught the sunset, a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. "Isabelle Croft, you saved my life in more ways than one. You taught me that truth matters more than power, that family is what we choose, not just what we're born into." His voice roughened with emotion. "You're the bravest, most brilliant person I've ever met, and I don't want to spend another day without you. Will you marry me?" Isabelle's tears spilled over, but she was laughing too, overwhelmed by joy she'd thought impossible 6 months ago. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her as the sun dipped below the skyline, painting their future in shades of gold and promise. Later, as they swayed to music from Nikolai's phone, Isabelle rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat, steady, alive, home. "Do you ever think about how it started?" she asked. "A dying man's last words in a language I shouldn't have understood?" "Every day," Nikolai murmured. "My uncle knew exactly what he was doing. He spent 20 years preparing for that moment, ensuring the right person would be there to hear his message. He brought us together. He gave us a chance to choose differently than our fathers did. To find truth and love instead of dying for secrets." Nikolai pulled back to look at her. "What would you tell your father now, if you could?" Isabelle considered, thinking of Marcus Croft's earnest face, his patient teaching, the legacy he'd left her. "That I understand now. That the dialect wasn't just a language, it was his way of giving me the tools to finish what he started. That I forgive him for the secrets and thank him for the courage." She smiled through new tears. "And that I found someone who values truth as much as he did." "He'd be proud of you," Nikolai said. "They both would be," Isabelle corrected. "Of both of us." Across the city, in a maximum security prison, Patia Kozlov sat alone in her cell, rage finally burned to ash. In London, Roman Kozlov signed papers that would fund schools in underserved communities, slowly building redemption one choice at a time. In evidence lockers and courtrooms, the truth Dmitry and Victor had protected finally served justice. And on a Chicago rooftop, two people who'd found each other through tragedy chose to build something beautiful from the ruins. Nikolai's phone buzzed, a message from the foundation's lawyer. The paperwork was finalized. The Victor Kozlov Foundation would open next month. Isabelle looked at the ring on her finger, then at the man who'd given it to her. 6 months ago, she'd been a waitress drowning in debt and unanswered questions. Now she was a professor, a fiancée, a woman who'd stared down killers and survived. "What are you thinking?" Nikolai asked. "That I'm grateful," she said simply. "For Dmitry's courage, for my father's foresight, for the dialect that saved us both." She kissed him softly. "And for you. Always for you." "Tamu," Nikolai whispered in Calabrian, "I love you," the language that had brought them together now blessing their future. "Tamu Puru," Isabelle replied. "I love you too." The city lights flickered on below like stars, and somewhere in the night, the ghost of Marcus Croft smiled, knowing his daughter had finally found the answers worth living for. Have you ever realized that the answers you've been searching for were leading you exactly where you needed to be? Sometimes the most dangerous journeys bring us to our safest harbor. Thank you for joining me on Isabelle and Nikolai's journey from tragedy to triumph. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments which moment made your heart race the most. Was it the vault revelation, the rooftop proposal, or something else entirely? Tomorrow, I have another incredible story that will make you believe in the power of truth and second chances. Until then, remember, you are braver than your fears, stronger than your past, and worthy of a love that fights for you as fiercely as you fight for it.